welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the whole gang.
Okay.
Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee, our fabulous producer. And we got Todd Corder on the other side of Atlanta. And, of course, the voice of the Rome Braves, Larry Gardner, down there in the bottom right, I think. Folks, you can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and, of course, please search for us on Apple and Spotify. You can find myself. Is it Twitter or is it X now? Are we doing the X?
Just call it Twitter. It's fine.
Twitter.
Yeah.
At JJ, get you one for myself. At RWY Junior for Wayne. At Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder. And at LG for Real Though for, again, the voice of the Rome Braves, Larry Gardner. How's everyone doing tonight? Todd, we'll start with you, man.
You know what? If we had your hat and your shirt when Larry's background, I'd be blind right now.
Larry, how you doing, man?
Man, all is well. It's been a minute since we've had an opportunity to jump on due to the baseball schedule, but everything's well up here in Adairsville/Tiger Town, getting ready to start high school football up here as well. So a lot going on, but this is my favorite time of the year, man. We're getting into it. So doing well. Thank you guys for asking.
Wayne, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I want to tell you something. I'm pretty stoked about the whole Scherzer thing, and we can probably talk about that later. But as a Texas Ranger fan, I only see good things from that.
I'm glad you mentioned it. And what a trade, one of the blockbusters at the deadline. We'll get into that later in the show. I'm doing well, but not as well as the newest way to catch all 107 HBCU teams, introducing HBCU Go. HBCU Go now will now be the exclusive broadcast partner of the SWAC, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, including the Chicago Football Classic and the Southern Heritage Classic, two great football games. First one will be that Chicago's Classic on September 2nd. It's going to feature Central State from the SIAC and, of course, the Mississippi Valley State from the SWAC, the SWAC, and we can't wait to see which HBCU Go does for all of college football in general. What's on tap for today's show? We do have Will McFadden joining us again of the Falcoholic. Talk a little NFL and Atlanta Falcons here. We will discuss college football, the only way it can be done, the ATL Prime Sports way, and we'll get into the MLB trade deadline. And without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Mr. Will McFadden, writer for the Falcoholic, will join us. Will, thanks for coming on, man. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well, y'all. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about Falcons training camp.
Indeed, and I'll go right to my first question, man. It's about Bijan Robinson. We've heard all the hype. He's doing absolutely everything. He's a wide receiver. He's a running back. Heck, I bet you we're going to throw some direct snaps right to him. What have you heard from Bijan Robinson? And as of right now, ESPN.com has him the number one overall running back in the backfield, ahead of Algier, ahead of Patterson. What do you think?
I mean, I think that he is in line to potentially be the Falcons' number one overall weapon, right? Like, I think that one of the things that Arthur Smith has made very clear so far in camp is that he doesn't really care about like wide receiver 1, 2, or 3. All of these players across all positions, tight end, running back, wide receiver, they're all just weapons in his mind. Like, he's truly embracing this positionless thing. So the whole notion of kind of even a depth chart in the backfield, I don't even think they're putting a whole lot of stock into that, because I think there's a legitimate chance that you see like 15 snaps in a game where all 3 running backs are on the field at the exact same time. I think there's a very good chance that the very first snap of the season, meaningful snap, is going to have both Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier on the field at the same time, just because coaches love to like avoid and duck any question about starters, and then they'll put both of them out there and they'll say they're both starters. So that's my prediction. But in terms of how Bijan has looked in training camp, it's almost hard to describe. That's how good he's looked. I mean, I'm sure you all have seen the clips on Twitter. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. I'm sure you guys have seen the matchups with Troy Anderson, some of the other athletic feats that he's had. it's just so smooth. Seems almost when he's indecisive, it's like it doesn't even matter, because when he does eventually make up his mind, he's just so quick to react and make those moves. He's working hard at the receiving part of his game. So he is going to be truly like a real X factor weapon for this team, in the likes of which they really haven't had recently. I mean, you do look at a player like Christian McCaffrey or a LaDainian Tomlinson, who he is, getting, I think, comped a lot too. Like, that's a fair reflection of his rare abilities, and just he looks different with the ball in his hand. So I know a lot of people talk about value. Even when the pick was made, I felt, hey, come fall, when you guys see this guy play out on the field, I don't think we're going to be sitting here talking about value in the draft. I think people are going to be really glad that he is wearing number 7 for the Falcons after seeing him for about 7 training camp practices. Like, still very glad that they made that selection.
I'll top the question off with a little fantasy football action. You have the 5th overall pick in your fantasy football draft. Are you taking Bijan Robinson? Because that's his average draft position right now.
I mean, I would always take a swing on a rookie running back who is the best in a class, because I think that is one of the positions where immediately they're getting the volume, like right out of the gates. And you draft a player with the immediate intention of using him, because we've seen what's happened to running back value. So the most value you're going to kind of get in terms of hopefully that on-field production is in the first 3 or 4 years. Use them and then figure it out. So yeah, I would take Bijan, even though, again, Arthur Smith has said, like, I don't care about your fantasy stuff, which I agree with, and he shouldn't, because his job is to win football games. And if Kyle Pitts needs to block more than go out on routes, like, that's totally his jurisdiction. However, that doesn't scare me away from Bijan Robinson. I think he's truly going to be maybe the focal point of this offense in just his first year.
A quick comment. I mean, Arthur Smith's mustache is must-see TV. It's amazing. Guys, take it away. I had to get that in.
Speaking of Arthur Blank, not Arthur Smith, but speaking of Arthur Blank, Ritter was comforted by owner Arthur Blank for his support right now, and that's great in training camp. But if he doesn't get off to a fast start, he won't be comfortable. And from what I can tell from the front 7 in practice, they're dominating that offensive line. Robinson can't even get past the line of scrimmage. That front 7 and defense has really been outstanding. Two-part question: the comfort by Ritter, and number 2, that front 7's playing extremely well. Is it they're really that good, or is the offensive line off to a slow start?
I'll answer Ritter first, and then we'll get to the defensive line. I think that, from what I saw in my 2 days up there, last Friday and Saturday, inconsistent. There were some really good throws. There were some throws kind of right on the money, good pace, nice zip, spiral, everything you want. The deep stuff was still not really connecting. And then there were moments where it looked like he was pushing it, and that the accuracy was really kind of getting away from him. I think that the coaching staff and the front office, and now Arthur Blank, like, everybody is doing a very good job of standing behind Desmond Ritter. Nobody is panicking. Nobody's really rushing to jump to conclusions and say, oh, no, we need to figure this out right now. So it has not been that bad, because, their body language and everything that they're saying indicates that this is totally what they expected, and that he's still kind of progressing in their timeline. I think that right now the biggest thing for him is learning exactly how Arthur Smith wants him to operate in this offense, when to take these shots, where to look to go with the ball when they've got these opportunities. He just needs to execute what is asked of him. And I think last season, what you saw in the bad moments of Mariota was not even just missing players. He's not even really going where the play is kind of meant to go. He's not taking advantage of what the offense is giving him. And I think that's where they want to get with Ritter, is like, look, we're doing all of this for a reason. And when we want to throw our counterpunch, we need it to be here, and we need you to get the ball here. And so keep trying, keep going in training camp and work on this and get this out of your system and figure it out. We can fix the accuracy. That's something mechanical, and you trust that NFL coaches, Dave Ragone, TJ Yates, former NFL quarterbacks, you can fix that. So I think that's where we are in the process. And everybody, again, is kind of boosting his confidence, sticking behind him, sticking to the plan. Defensive line-wise, I do think there's reason to be excited beyond what we should have been coming into training camp. Like, it's looked better than I had hoped. I think that the depth is real. It is very apparent that, it's tough sledding to get kind of some push up front. And the Falcons offensive line, remember, like, the run game is the bread and butter. And so we're seeing a defensive front that's kind of able to stand up to that. And part of the reason Bijan is standing out is because he's having to make some really big cuts. He's having to totally bounce it back because that's the only place that there is a space. So the defensive line, you're getting play from players, new players. David Onyemata I mentioned, but Zach Harrison, the rookie, has kind of drawn a lot of praise from Arthur Smith this past week for some of his play. And, we'll see what somebody like Justin Ellis can do now, kind of coming in after Eddie Goldman seemingly retired again. We don't necessarily know fully what happened there. Calais Campbell still hasn't even hit the field yet. So the two deep is looking really, really strong for this defensive line. And I think so far that's maybe the most encouraging sign out of training camp.
Hey, Will, you continue to talk about the depth of this team, and especially on the defensive side, how just looking at what Dean Pease had to work with his first couple of years as Arthur Smith came upon this Falcons job, and with the Falcons having the money that they've done and they've spent it defensively, I want to focus a little bit on the secondary and the competition that doesn't matter if they're Jesse Bates or if it's AJ or any of them. I mean, even some of the new rookies are going out there and just challenging the ones that, like the Drake Londons of the world, and saying, hey, we just going to compete and we want to get better every day. In the two practices that you were up there at Flowery Branch, what did you see from the defensive backfield that gave you hope that this unit could be one of the best secondaries, not only in the NFC South, but in the NFC period?
I think, just as we were talking about consistency with Desmond Ridder, like that, and I should say the lack thereof so far from Desmond Ridder, I have seen consistency from Atlanta's secondary, and that is one of the most impressive things in it. There may not be, maybe the offensive line and the secondary are the two areas where, like, as a group, you need consistency, just kind of play in and play out, game in and game out. Otherwise, things could go wrong really quickly. And you're seeing aggressiveness, but not, boneheadedness. Like, they're not just out here jumping routes left and right there, but they are competing for every ball. You're seeing guys like Jeff Okudah, make some interceptions, be right there in the grill of bigger receivers like Matt Collins, Drake London. AJ Terrell is AJ Terrell. Nothing, like, we all know what we're going to get from him. But you're getting young guys like Clark Phillips, who is really starting to impress. Looks like he got some second team run yesterday in place of Mike Hughes. Today, it looks like Mike Hughes kind of stepped back in there, but still, that he's a player that has done the most with kind of the opportunities that he's been given. D. Alford is getting run there in the starting nickel spot. So clearly he continues to build upon a really impressive first year with the team after coming in from the CFL last year. So it just seems like they are slowly adding pieces to a group that last year was not a huge issue until injuries started to really take their toll. But going into the season, we felt last year like, hey, this is a pretty deep group. They're not like household names, even for depth pieces. But if you needed a Cornell Armstrong to step in or a D. Alford at the time, we had seen in training camp that they at least could hold their own. Now, those guys have arguably improved, and you've added other people to the mix, like a Jeff Okudah, like a Mike Hughes, like a Jesse Bates, and you've improved the entire unit that last year already had some nice pieces. So I think that the big test is going to be Miami, right? They have two of the best wide receivers in the league, certainly different animals from what they've seen in practice against the Falcons. That is speed, whereas they have been seeing size and physicality. So if the Falcons can hold their own in the secondary against the Dolphins, that'll really make me feel good about not only just their overall level of play, but their matchup versatility, because they're going to be seeing a totally different group when they go down to Miami.
Yeah. Hey, Will, appreciate you being on here today. And I know that Arthur Smith kind of likes to favor the tight ends on the offense. And I was wondering if you had any type of updates or thoughts on not only Kyle Pitts, but Felipe Franks being a tight end.
Yeah, do have thoughts on Felipe, but we'll start with Kyle. He's looked really good. He has looked, like the Kyle Pitts of old, right? And it's gonna take some time, as it'll take anybody. Whether physically they can be 100%, but I don't know if you're ever really 100% back to being that player until probably like midway through your first season back, or maybe like the first 4-game block. Because, and he said this on Saturday, was you got to get knocked down, you got to get in the dirt, you got to get back up, you got to take the hits on the knee and realize that it's all going to be okay. And so that trust in your own body to not even for a millisecond have to reassure yourself in the middle of a play that like it's all going to be good. You don't have the time to do that. I mean, frankly, there's some moments with Bijan, just because he's so flexible and has so much power, where I'm just like holding my breath. I can afford to doubt, the structural integrity of his incredibly impressive like athletic ability, but he can't afford to do that. So that's the thing with Kyle, is he looks great, but I think that's the last hurdle for him, and that there's nobody that can make that hurdle except for him. Felipe is, I think, benefiting from Jonnu Smith being out. We don't really have any clear timeline for when Jonnu Smith will return. They did say, worst case scenario, they expect him to at least be back by the time the joint practices happen down in Miami. So that's clearly not a long time frame that they expect him to be out. You're seeing Felipe Franks start getting more looks at gunner, which the Falcons have said, hey, when it comes to special teams, like that is truly the place they're throwing everything against the wall. And why not, right? Like special teams changes, it feels like every 2 years, because they introduce new rules and things like that. So experiment, figure it out. And that's kind of where you're going to see a lot of the back end of the roster guys like earn their bread and butter and make the roster. So everybody's getting a shot to fight, including Felipe, even though it's weird to see like a 6'5" quarterback tight end running down the field as your gunner. Who cares? Like, maybe he can do it. Maybe he can do jet sweeps, which is something that apparently they were working with him yesterday on. So part of me wants to wonder if this is a maybe like swan song for Felipe, and it's like his last training camp. Let's throw everything out there and just like go crazy and see what he can do. And maybe there is somewhere that he really can shine and stick. Because I just don't see, based on what we saw last season, and given that you have Michael Pruitt back, you've added Jonnu Smith, John Fitzpatrick, I think they've got hopefully some plans for, because, reports are that he's been impressive, and that the coaching staff, kind of likes what he's brought so far. So like, you're quickly seeing this room that also includes Parker Hesse fill up. And I don't know if what Felipe Franks provided last year is enough for a team that has playoff aspirations. So maybe this is let's just see where he can provide value. Maybe there is a place where he is far and away the best option. And if he is, awesome, great. If not, hey, we've gone down every possible avenue. Right, exactly.
Listen to Will McFadden right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can find Will on Twitter at Will McFadden, and you can find his writing at The Falcoholic on Twitter. And with further ado, I will say, Eddie Goldman, you mentioned it earlier, Calais Campbell, two of the biggest, one was an acquisition, one was a comeback. You kind of touched on it. I know Eddie Goldman's kind of a question mark. Calais Campbell's the same thing. Has there been any updates from him? Was it an injury thing? Is it kind of personal time? Do we know anything about that?
Eddie Goldman, I believe, is off the roster. Like he's done. Calais Campbell
list, yeah.
Yeah. So the Calais Campbell aspect, not yet. I mean, he did speak with the media a little bit ago. They've said that this was kind of a I think, a personal decision that Calais made to get something worked on that they were aware of, that they're fine, agreed with. Even if he was totally healthy coming into camp, like, he would have been out there on the practice field by now. But if anybody on this roster was going to get just like a very minimal camp workload, it would be Calais Campbell. So it sounds like it was something precautionary, take care of something. They understood that he would miss a little bit of time up front, and he'll be back when he comes back. But as of now, to my knowledge, there's not really been any update to the timetable.
Hey, Will, the offensive line played really well in the run game a year ago. To me, it really was pretty suspect in the pass protection. That's going to be critical for Ritter's success. They really need to get established, I would say, at left guard and provide McGarry some help against elite pass rushers. Your thoughts on that offensive line? Because I stated earlier in the podcast that the front seven's been having its way.
I think that the offensive line, a lot of people are going into this season totally expecting that to now just be a strength, right? And I fully expect it to be, but we overlooked the fact that they were, by and large, pretty healthy last season, that you got really, really strong years from Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry on your right side, that, you had your left guard play with Elijah Wilkinson be average to above average, which on the offensive line, you'll take that as long as the other guys are playing well. Jake Matthews was Jake Matthews, and Drew Dahlman took some lumps, but by and large, I think he's going to benefit greatly this year from last year. However, I think that of a lot of the position groups, the biggest letdown potential could be the offensive line, solely because we're coming in with very high expectations. I do think that the offense is going to be a little bit different, and you're going to see more balance and the passing game implemented a little bit more than last year. And, to your point there, Todd, the pass protection was not nearly as strong as the run protection. So that does expose them up to a little bit more criticism, a little bit more opportunity where they're not, playing to their full strength. However, they do such a good job, I think, building an offense that does help the offensive line specifically, and it makes their jobs and their lives much, much easier, whether that be various pre-snap motions to just kind of shift the defensive line into a more susceptible kind of starting position where they're aligned in the gaps and what have you, and it gives the offensive line an advantage, whether it just be additional guys in there to block, whether it be some of the play action sets that then allow them to almost run block and get the defensive line on a back foot. There's a lot of ways that Arthur Smith is smart about that. As a former offensive lineman, he knows how to get these guys some help with his own schematic abilities. So I think that if anything, it's more a positive to me that the defensive line has looked good in camp, not really a negative or an indictment on the offensive line, because I think that they'll get into form a little bit. It takes a little bit of time, I think, for the offense to come along. Defenses usually get started a little bit quicker. That'll be another good test in Miami, is this offensive line against a pretty decent Miami defensive front. So yeah, we'll see once the preseason starts rolling around, but not concerned about the offensive line right now.
Will, I got two people that are sticking out in the head that I really want to see before the season starts. One, Matthew Bergeron, the rookie from Syracuse, and want to see how he's holding up his own, being thrown in to run a little bit with the ones here in camp. And then two, Arnold Devicati. And I think for me, I think he is extremely crucial in the success of the defensive line and linebacker crew, going from 21 sacks to hopefully 35, 40 sacks if he has a breakout year in his sophomore season. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah. We'll start with Arnold. I'm very curious to see him in this defense as well. And it was something that we were talking to Bud Dupree about after practice one of these days. And he was saying that, in Ryan Nielsen's scheme, they are truly asking him, or apologies, it wasn't Bud Dupree, it was Lorenzo Carter. Got my edge rushers mixed up. And so Lorenzo Carter, obviously, in Dean Pease's scheme, was often standing up in that kind of 2-point stance. There you go Dogs. And that was something we saw him do often throughout his career. That was kind of more of his preferred pass rushing style, or at least the way he was often used. Now they've got his hand in the dirt, right? And Ryan Nielsen comes from more in New Orleans. Like, these guys had their hand in the dirt, bigger physical bodies, things like that. Arnold Ebiketie, I felt like, was drafted in that style of Dean Pease defense where you have more of these edge players who are stand-up outside kind of 3-4 linebacker hybrid guys who you would drop into coverage or you would bring on a pressure or, you know, just use them in a variety of ways. So can Arnold Ebiketie thrive in a system where maybe he needs to be a little bit bigger? Maybe he needs to play with his hand in the dirt. What do you offer as a run defender? Are you able to set that edge? Like, these different qualities that are needed when you're kind of starting from a different position and you're used in a little bit of a different role defensively. I think that's going to be an adjustment for Arnold Ebiketie in year two, because I think he was a little bit better suited to the Dean Pease system. However, because they have so much depth and they can kind of rotate guys in and out, I think they're going to use him in more advantageous situations, which could ultimately create more production for him. I think that there is a chance he ends his second year with more sacks, maybe not as many as fans are looking for. Like, maybe he's not a 10 sack guy in year two. He could be. I saw flashes of that kind of potential from him last year, but I don't think he's close to really putting all of that together just yet. But if he has like 6 or 7 sacks, I would take that. You know, I would take that 100% because I think that the opportunities aren't going to be as available as they may be even next year for him. So just build this year, and I think that will be progress enough. Matthew Bergeron, I mean, he packs a wallop, man. He's going to be good in the run game right away. I think that is a very clear strength of his game. And if he is the starter kind of right away, whether that's due to Matt Hennessy's injury lingering or whether he beats him outright and just has a starting job, I have to imagine it's going to be because of his run blocking, and that is an asset that they feel just right away is among the best options at that left guard spot. And if you can maximize that aspect of your game, then you should. But the pass protection is going to be a big learning curve for any rookie. I don't care really who you are, where you came from. You could left tackle at Alabama all 4 years. Like, it's just a different animal here. So that's always going to be a concern for any rookie. You hope maybe Drew Dahlman, after last year's experience, is a little bit better equipped instead of needing a veteran there to help him. Maybe he's able to help a rookie. And then Jake Matthews, I mean, I feel like this is he's been in the league, like 10 years, his 10th time having a different left guard next to him. So like he's used to this by now. So I'm really impressed with what Matthew Bergeron has shown so far. And I think Arthur Smith is as well. So a second round pick, like he looks pretty solid out there. He looks like he belongs.
Will, thanks for joining us. We're about out of time. I want to say thanks again and tell our listeners how they can see your work on the old X or Twitter.
Yeah, of course. You can follow me at Will McFadden on Twitter. I believe I'm going to have a piece coming up sometime this week, maybe this weekend, on the defensive line on the Falcoholics, so you can check that out. And then a new episode of Believe in Falcons, my podcast, is going to be dropping tomorrow morning. I've got Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons, and famously Falc fans on Twitter. If you don't follow him, great follow. So he joined me to break down training camp and have a lot of these fun discussions as well. But this one was great. I thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Will,
Absolutely.
1 second before you go, you mentioned Jake Matthews. What a career. What a football family they come from. If you get a shot to get a piece on that during the year, wow. I mean, that would be quite a read too.
Yeah, I always love getting to talk to Jake about his dad. I know I've done some draft pieces on him before back when I was with the website and talked to him a lot about what his dad meant to him for that part of the journey. So yeah, that's one of my favorite topics because it's such a cool story.
It is.
Indeed it is. Will McFadden of the Falcoholic right here on ATL Prime Sports. Folks, go check him out on the old Twitter or X at Will McFadden. Again, thank you, Will, and we'll see you next time. You're welcome here anytime, man.
Appreciate it, y'all.
Thanks, Will.
Guys, and we'll kind of wrap up that interview, give our own thoughts about the interview we just had with Will McFadden real quick, and then we'll move on to our college football roundtable real quick. And next week, stay tuned. We'll get our top 10 in next week, our preseason top 10. We'll do that next week when we have a little bit more time to discuss it. But yeah, guys, What a great interview. Beyond Robinson seems like he's the real deal. Again, depth charts everywhere, Pro Football Focus. They all got him as the number one guy. And I think that's huge. Again, another part we mentioned the comfort that Desmond Ridder has. Guys, I want to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, that's got to be a confidence booster for Ridder, knowing you've had 4 games under your belt. You got the owner, the general manager, and the head coach all in your favor, in your corner.
Well, I was going to say that's great, but if you're 4 games into the season, you're 1-3 and 0-4, the confidence is in the trash can, number one. Number two, I am concerned from Ridder from a deep ball perspective. There's no question he's been inconsistent in camp. And number three, that offensive line does concern me. And number four, Robinson is going to be the home run hitter guy. You heard Coach Smith doesn't really go who's 1, who's 2, who's 3, and etc. He's going to be a home run hitter guy. I think they're going to put him in the slot and move him all around. He won't get as much carries as we think, but he will get as many touches as we think.
I can tell you, TC, from a offensive line perspective, as Tyler Algier was able to put up 1,000 yards behind the line, even at its lowest point, with the improvements that have been made to it, I don't see any reason why the combination of he, Cordero Patterson, and Bijan could not put up 15 to 2,000 yards rushing. I think one of the key things is going to be to temper expectations for Desmond Ridder, because he's not going to be expected to do a lot. I mean, if he can go 12 for 18, 13 for 20, 200 yards and a touchdown, while Algier, Patterson, and Robinson are toting the mail, that's solid to me. And scoring points has really never been an issue since Arthur Smith has been here. It's keeping the other team from scoring. So if we can begin, and you know this as well as I do, that the teams that are successful in the playoffs are the one that can put the opposing quarterback on his keister. And if we can do that and do that at a productive rate, I don't see any reason as to why the Falcons could not compete for not only an NFC South division title, but could make more noise in the NFC playoffs if they get to that level.
Yeah, guys, I'm really excited about it. Wayne, you got the final thought for the Will McFadden interview?
Yeah, I was glad to hear the information on the tight ends. There's a lot of my family that lives in Arkansas, and him being a former player from there, it's just an interesting story to follow. And I am glad that Kyle Pitts seems to be, approaching closer to 100%.
Yeah, that's huge news for Atlanta Falcons fans everywhere. Absolutely. Let's move on, guys. Great interview. If you like the content, please give us a like, a subscribe. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Just search ATL Prime Sports. Thanks, guys. College football roundtable with the passing of conference media days. It's now officially talking season. Not for long, though. We're about 2.5 weeks from week 0. Let's go around college football with our favorite preseason storylines, and I'll kick this one off, guys. My favorite preseason storyline, I was telling this to TC the other day, it's the newness. It's the newness of college football. You got new teams and new conferences absolutely everywhere across the country, and I think who I'm most excited to see is Houston and the Big 12 along with BYU. I just think it's absolutely exhilarating for college football to have a couple more teams have a shot that normally might not get in there at the end of it. So that's my biggest preseason storyline, guys. I just love the newness. You're going to see this is the last year of Texas-Oklahoma and possibly the last Bedlam rivalry in Oklahoma State. So I wonder what Gundy's going to do in that one at the end of the year. That's going to be a great game. But it's the newness. It's just the newness. You're talking James Madison can now win the Sun Belt title. They were close to undefeated. 7-8-0 to start the year out. There's just so much newness in college football. It's like opening up a pack of fresh tennis balls. Just smells that good, guys. Let's go around. Todd, what's your favorite storyline? Or Larry, go ahead. Either one. Let's have some fun here.
I'll just go. Look, to me, and I hate to say this because we're going to 4 super conferences. There's just no question in my mind. the Pac-10 is in big trouble. Get the shovel out and start digging, because dirt's going to be buried over the conference. You know, the Big Ten is exploring expansion. Every time you hear the word exploring, that means they are expanding. And the Big Ten will take that Pac-10 pie because of the money the Big Ten has. What do they have? Fox, NBC, ABC, ESPN, the Big Ten Network. I have a saying, from Pee Wee to the pros, follow the money. Well, the Big Ten has the money in TV, and the Pac-10 does not. And you're going to see the Big Ten pick up Stanford, Washington, Cal, and Washington, Stanford, Cal, and I said, I'm sorry, Washington, Stanford, Cal, and Oregon. So they're going to pick up those 4 schools. My bad on that. They're going to pick up those, and they'll already have USC and UCLA. So I have every Power 5 school almost in the state of California. And in the Big 12, with their expansion, they'll end up grabbing Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah. And as you already know, Colorado, USC, and UCLA are gone after next year. So to me, we're going to 4 super conferences. It's sad, but follow the money, and that's what you got.
Yeah,
Larry, what you got, man?
Yeah, I'm kind of where he is. I think my biggest storyline for the college football season is how the TV money and the TV deals are literally orchestrating how college football is restructuring itself. And everybody's song and dance is to the dollar, to TC's point. And unfortunately, the fans are going to be the ones that suffer because of it, because of your natural rivals that you've grown up from generation to generation are literally going to dissipate, because we are on our way, as long as TV deals and TV rights continue to do what they continue to do, we are on our way to 4 big super conferences. And to me, the problem that you're going to have is college football that used to be worth watching every week is now going to only be worth watching for those once you get to championship Saturday and going into the playoffs. And that's not what you want to do, because for us that are legit college football fans, you can get jacked up for week 1, you know, and be excited for every week, because it may not necessarily be the Alabama, Auburn. It may not necessarily be the Miami, Florida State. It may not necessarily be the USC, Notre Dame type games that you see every week. You're going to have to be excited about Iowa, Iowa State. You know, you're going to have to start getting excited about those games that would ordinarily not be as high up on the totem pole, just because people want to get some access to that TV revenue. And TC's point continues to remain the same. These chancellors and all of these people who are making decisions, these commissioners and everybody are making decisions based off of the paycheck. And unfortunately, us as fans are going to be the ones left holding an empty bag. The football product is still going to be the same because the athletes are getting better, but those rival games that you love to see, that you just couldn't wait for, it's just not going to be as special anymore, because you're probably only going to see them once every 3 to 4 years.
Wayne, your preseason or storyline you're looking forward to coming up in college football?
I'm going to go ahead and stick to the American Athletic Conference. We've got a whole lot of new teams that have come in, one of which I'm excited about was UAB coming back, because we used to be in the same conference with them. And the other one game that's coming up is they're going to be playing Missouri in the Dome in St. Louis, and I'm interested to see how that's going to turn out, being that it's a sort of a neutral site, equal distance from both schools. And the one team that I was worried about the most in the American Athletic Conference coming in, University of Texas San Antonio, Memphis does not have to play this year, so
lucky for Memphis.
Yeah,
that's a high five for Memphis fans all over. Well, folks, that'll wrap up. Guys, any quick final thoughts? I was just trying to do a little fun preseason storyline, something we're familiar with. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on right quick?
Quarterback situation. You look at the top 5 teams arguably in the country: LSU, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. 3 of those 5 teams still have not named, quote unquote, a starting quarterback. Michigan and LSU have an established quarterback and a track record. Let's see how that plays out during this season. because Tim Brando was on ATL Prime Sports. He didn't give his national championship. He did it on a national champion. He did it on another program. But I can tell you right now, I could tell when speaking to him, he's got Michigan there. And you know what? They could be there at the end because the NCAA, Harbaugh is ticked off at him. And I can just see it now. He's very vindictive. He'll have his team ready. And if they're in the playoff, he would love to shake the NCAA chairman's hand or whoever it is, the commissioner's hand, while he's getting that trophy, because that will be his get back.
That's a great point, Todd. And I wish we had a little bit more time, but I do want to discuss the Major League Baseball trade deadline came and passed August 1st, my anniversary, ironically. Trade deadline MLB is passed. Let's discuss what we feel were the best moves for the contenders. Kind of sticking towards the contenders here, folks. I'll tee this one off again. I do. I think the Orioles getting Jack Flaherty for some 3 high potential minor league prospects. Cardinals get back Cesar Pierto. I think I pronounced that right. Drew Rom, and then Zach Showalter for Jack Flaherty. I think he was arguably the best pitcher on the market. Obviously, JV, Justin Verlander, and Max Scherzer, they had up and down years, but Flaherty's been pretty consistent, hasn't gotten a lot of run support in St. Louis. I think that's a huge get for Baltimore, who's been right on the brink of a postseason run for a couple years. This may be the year they get him over. I really like the move. Jack Flaherty to the Baltimore Orioles, folks. Larry, let's go you, man. What do you think was the best move of the MLB trade deadline for the top contender, in your opinion?
I don't necessarily call it the best move, but I would call it the more makes sense move is Houston getting Justin Verlander back from the Mets. We know, I'm not even going to go into it because as a Braves fan, it does me no more pleasure in the world than watching the Mets just erode and fold up like a lawn chair. So that gives me a lot of pleasure. But Houston has been, if my mind serves me correctly, and you may have to check me on this stat, but I think Houston has been to the NLDS or NLCS, I think the last 6 years in a row. And the one thing that we know that is important, which is us as Braves fans, we really wanted something bigger, but we didn't get to see it, is pitching. And Houston made sure that they added another, as long as he stays healthy, they made sure that they added another stout arm to their starting rotation to get ready for another title run. And I think Verlander going back to Houston, where he came from to begin with, is going to be huge for the Astros. I mean, they did some other ones, but they really solidified not only that starting rotation, but that bullpen. So as much as we probably are sick and tired of seeing Houston deep into the AL playoffs, I think they did everything that they could, along with Texas Wayne squad, to solidify what they need to do to make a deep playoff run come October.
As Murphy would say in the movie Beverly Hills Cop, deep undercover. And guess what? Houston went deep and got Justin Verlander. Follow the money. What did the Mets? They're kicking in $35 million to go get 2 prospects from Houston. $35 million so they can get 2 of their 4 best prospects, right? And then the Mets dump Verlander, and Houston will have to pay the remainder of the deal. But the Mets are paying the most of it, and they got JV, who's already won it all in Houston, not once, but twice. They got him from Detroit years ago with seconds to go on the clock, and that's what started the Tigers' demise. As you can see, the Tigers thing behind my right shoulder. I'm sick to my stomach. Was a huge Verlander fan, but nevertheless, here it is. Houston did it, and me, that's 1A. 1B, follow the money again. Yep, from Pee Wee to the pros. Wayne's gonna smile. They got Max Scherzer, as you know, and guys, they also picked up Jordan Montgomery. Nobody talks about that. But that guy is just as big as Max Scherzer. and Texas only has to pay $22.5 million for the rest of this season and next, and the Mets again get to pay $21 million, follow the money, and they get Acuna's, DeQuire Acuna's little brother. Now, what franchise with any sense? Oh, wait a minute. I'll go back to Bobby Bonilla. Duh. They're paying $40-something million for three minor leaguers.
They're paying Robinson Cano too.
Right. Thank you for that. So they're paying $40-something million to dump 2 Hall of Famers for 3 minor leaguers. And as we know, a minor league player, you don't know until they get to the major leagues. Follow the money, the New York Mets. I rest my case.
Wayne, I know you're happy about Scherzer coming to your Rangers. Tell us about it, and I'm sure that's your favorite move.
Well, yeah, it has to be my favorite move, but it served a good purpose because it is now August, so it balances out my anxiety about August, except for the fact that they are now tied with Houston for that division, and we'll see if Scherzer can do something about that or help do something anyway.
What's really cool is I was talking to Todd about this.
Yeah.
About 72 hours ago, Scherzer and Verlander teammates. Now division rivals.
Right.
And you know what, JJ? I said it to you privately. Verlander's going to go back to Houston. And I was really just kind of having fun with it because I thought, because of the money, it's a long shot.
I thought you were right too.
The Mets made it a sure shot because of the money. And here's an underrated trade, if I may add. Get the Braves getting Nicky Lopez from Kansas City to play second, short, or wherever in God's world they want him to play. And you know what will happen? That trade is under the radar, but I swear you're going to get an NLDS or you're going to, or NLDS or an NLCS. Nicky Lopez is going to step up and hit a triple with the bases loaded. And then Joe Buck and John Smoltz are going to be looking in their notes and going, oh, man, you know what? They got Nicky Lopez from Houston. He hit 300 in 2021, and, he's got speed. He's one of the best defenders in the league. And how does that trade go under the radar? Well, it doesn't go under the radar here on ATL Prime Sports. You watch. That's what the Atlanta Braves do as good as anybody in baseball. They find them. Just find them. They have great scouts. You saw in the movie, Clint Eastwood was a great scout for the Atlanta Braves, and he was going blind. So
trouble with the curve.
That's the way the franchise rocks.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. The Braves did acquire 3 pieces. You mentioned Nicky Lopez. They got Brad Hand, and they got Pierce Johnson, both from the Rockies. Brad Hand, another lefty reliever to help out A.J. Minter in situational closing situations, setup situations. I really like what the Braves did. They did kind of sit on their hands, but let's face it, Max Fried could start tomorrow afternoon in Wrigley Field. That is the rumors, and it looks like it might just happen. So if Max Fried comes back and you get Kyle Wright back right before playoff roster deadline, that could be addition by doing absolutely nothing. Folks, we're running out of time here. That was our final segment. Let's go to our final thought of the night. And I will tee this one off as well because this one just is relevant. Guys, you're a professional athlete. You're a college athlete. Don't bet on your sport. Just don't do it. Gee whiz. There's 7 guys from Iowa and Iowa State. Each is accused in the complaints of tampering with records related to the Iowa Criminal Division investigation into sports gambling. That's a mouthful. But point is, don't do it. The apps track you. They literally, hey, I put my bet in. Yeah, 17 million other people did, and they know exactly where it came from. Do not on your own sport, college or pros. Don't do it. Bet on something else. Bet on tennis. Bet on baseball. Anything that you don't play, please bet on it. Sorry, guys. That was on my chest.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned it because Jameson Williams of the Lions did the same thing. He bet, and that was the end of that. And he's out 6 games and yada, yada, yada. But to me, my final thought is show me the money. You know what? A college player coming out of high school has a better shot to make more money than an NFL rookie, except for maybe, well, he might be able to make more than a first round. I mean, now in college football, you can get out of high school. Well, actually, you can stay a senior in high school. You can leave, you can leave your senior year in high school. You can go play for one team as a freshman. You can transfer the next year and get a better NI deal. That would be your sophomore year. You can go to your junior year, get another NI deal. Your senior year, get another NI deal from another school. And oh, by the way, you could be a graduate transfer and get another NI deal and go, I'm set for life. Oh, yeah, I can go play in the NFL, but only less than 1% of college players make it. So what I'm saying is you can get a car. Spencer Rattler got one. What was that kind of car, JJ? What was that?
G-Wagon.
A
very nice car.
$140,000 car. And they do, it's my NI deal. This is just, back in the day, they used to have to sneak the stuff. Ask Reggie Bush. And now it's all out there. Just get what you can get. You know what? Thanks to television, follow the money, and the NIL, this is all possible for college athletes. God bless them if they can get it.
Larry, your final thought, buddy, and then Wayne, you'll get the final thought.
I had 2, but I want to stick to this one.
Go ahead, go to both of them.
You want both of them. All right. Well, my first one that I had was in regards to the soon-to-be defunct ACC as a football conference. I feel sorry for a lot of those schools who just came to the ACC and now are going to have to deal because Florida State saying, you know what, don't think this is going to fit for us anymore. We can't afford to be behind the 8 ball and continue to lose money to our program as high profile as the Seminole program is. As much as I hate them being a Miami fan, the reality is the reality. If they do jump ship, watch out, because it will be the beginning of a mass exodus from the ACC program as we know, or the ACC conference as we know it. My real last final thought, ladies and gentlemen that are fans of Braves country, trust Alex Anthopoulos. Trust him. He has never let us down. Even when we felt like he let us down, he really never let us down, because every move that he consistently makes is under the radar, as TC said earlier, usually pans out somewhere when it's important. Most of us can remember Adam Duvall's clutch grand slam in the World Series. We can remember Eddie Rosario's home run in the NLCS. You know, we all know Jock Peterson and the Pearls. And of course, nobody will ever forget the Jorge Soler ball that still is probably flying around the orbit of Saturn as we continually speak.
What did Jock Peterson call the team, Larry? I'm sorry. What did he call them?
Oh, man, I can't even remember what he called the team, but I know
something.
Bad mother.
Oh yeah.
Terrible. I was saying Savage is being nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
EMFs.
That's a good acronym there, JJ. Great acronym. But Braves Nation, Braves fans, just trust Alex. I believe everything is going to work out to his advantage. The only team I'm really concerned about come the playoffs is the Dodgers. And if we can work through them.
You know what? You might have, because if Cincinnati gets in, they'll be a dangerous out. They have speed, and speed don't go in a slump. They put the ball on the rug. They can bunt. They can move runners over. They can put pressure on the opposing defense. I think they'll be a tough out if they get in, and that's a big F because there's a lot of time to play.
There's a lot of time to play.
I'm glad you mentioned the Reds. I'll be real quick, Wayne, but that Reds-Braves series was one of the most exciting series yet in Major League Baseball. Wayne, the final thought of the evening.
Well, this is a non-sports final thought, but it's something that has come to my attention that I am bugged by. If you go to a steakhouse and you order a steak, you have 5 choices of temperature: well done, medium well, medium rare, or rare. There's no such thing as medium plus. I don't ever want to hear anybody order their steak medium plus.
What about medium well?
Medium well's fine. That's one of the
Okay.
5. But medium plus is a joke. Don't ever order your steak medium plus. That's
Medium
dumb.
plus. You know, I had steak tonight.
Yeah.
I never heard of medium plus in my life.
Well, it's a new thing going around with all the fashionable pretty people in
Oh,
it.
it's medium. That's
Larry,
medium or
Larry,
medium rare. That's all you need. 2 temperatures, medium or medium rare, either one.
Larry, do you get steak at the Rome games when you're?
I've not seen a steak all season long. The closest thing that I've seen to a steak is a chicken tender.
You know what?
Stadium.
You know what? We get some really good food when we go some places in the SIAC, especially up at Central State calling some of the games. I haven't seen steak up there, but I tell you what, when I was at Miles a year ago, there was like extra food, and they're like inviting me in, and I can't have it because I have kidney disease. For you folks out there that I've got to watch my salt content. But I'm telling you what, this season, I hope there's some steak in the SIAC, because I'll tell you what, that football is sizzling on the field. It's getting better every year. And the conference, well, Benedict's the favorite. But now that it's down into one division, JJ, you can't go slow start anymore. We're going to see the haves and the have-nots. And we'll see if it's jumbled this year, because the East was definitely the better division than the West.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting at the SIAC. Folks, please remember to go check out the HBCU Go app to keep track with all 107 HBCUs. For Larry in Adairsville, TC in Rome, Wayne, our producer, in fabulous Memphis, Tennessee, I'm JJ. Get you one. We'll see you next week.
One pride, Barry Sanders over my right shoulder, signed. The Lions are going to make the playoffs this year. I'm out.
See you next week, folks.